We all appreciate the guy who brings in a case of donuts into work every once in a while. And it's awesome and it's wonderful. But here's the thing. If you're going to be the last guy to get the donut, that's fine. That's just how it landed. Take that box of donuts and put it in the damn garbage so that I don't finish some fucking 13-hour day, walk into the break room with my stomach eating my goddamn ribs, take one look and go, oh, thank Christ, there's donuts here. Open it up and am absolutely crushed on the inside.
You don't like that, Deuce?
It was just the worst feeling ever.
It's actually the one that comes to mind is the pizza box, you know? And the next time we do live election coverage, I'm going to make sure that I have an empty pizza box just for you. Just for you.
Oh, yeah, that's great. I love the way the mic's sitting in front of your shirt so it says Ron sharpens iron.
Ron does sharpen iron, all right? Oh, man. How's Tues doing this week?
Oh, Tues is a little bit beat down, a little bit tired. You know, it's been one of those weeks where just you get home from work just in time to have one beer and go to bed. And then you get up at 4:30 in the morning and go do it again. And you think like, man, wouldn't it be nice if I had one of those jobs where you could have a beer or two while you're doing it? Like a bartender or a teacher or the leader of the Green Party in Canada.
I was going to slide in the podcast host, but hey, that's me.
Yes, that too.
Welcome to Mashup 135, folks. Oh, I'm doing great on this side. I got Christmas shows starting tonight, back to back. So I'm my own sort of stressed out right now. I walked in here about 98 seconds before we started, which is always fun.
Yeah.
And I got lots going on today as we have dueling pianos coming to Lloydminster. And we got 2 sold out shows. So hopefully those go off without a hitch.
Duel to the death?
It is. Yes. It's
nice.
It's a musical duel to the death. Yes. That should be interesting. Mashup 135, folks. We're here. We're making it work. Happy Airborne Friday to Jamie Sinclair and the boys. You know,
betcha.
I was just talking to Jamie yesterday, and I got some, I think, next week I have Rod Giltaka on from the CCFR, and I think there's going to be some interesting things coming to Calgary close to the Cornerstone Forum that's going to have possibly tie a couple organizations together, which would be a lot of fun. That's all I can say right now because we don't officially have it confirmed, but
leave us all dangling on that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. And while we're talking about everything, if you guys have any community events you want to put out in the community notes, have them ready for the end of the show.
And new theme song. Okay. I keep getting texts about this of like people giving.
I might have an idea about that, but I'm not going to say a damn thing about it till later. You know, just like how you just did.
Oh, well, I'm going to say this, okay, to the lovely people who are texting me saying we should use anything from the Tragically Hip to the AC/DC to the on and on and on. What we want is somebody from, I don't know, Western Canada, maybe with a new hip jingle that mashes in the mashup. And I've had some people using AI to try and do some things. So shout out to Peter. That's been interesting. Just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there to the mashup universe that we are looking for something that isn't Eminem anymore because obvious reasons. And I don't know.
2 weeks in a row.
Have a correction. Twos is correcting himself.
Twos has a correction to make. And my big rant about how Calgary spent a whole bunch of stupid goddamn money on all sorts of weird, dumb shit. I said that they got Dr. Quinn medicine woman herself, Sigourney Weaver, to design a sculpture. And of course, everybody knows that Sigourney Weaver is from Aliens and Ghostbusters, and it was Jane Seymour who was Dr. Quinn medicine woman. It was just a Freudian slip because at any given moment in time, obviously I'm going to be thinking about Sigourney Weaver because she's just amazing.
I was sitting there last week going, that doesn't make any sense. But I was like, wait a second, maybe I'm wrong. And I forgot to go check it. So I'm glad you checked yourself, or I'm glad somebody called you out on it because I did.
Nobody called me out on it. Nobody called me out on it.
You said it, and later on you're like,
tape afterwards, and I'm like,
yeah, that's a oops.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lots of people getting in on this value for value idea. I'm just going to throw that back into the mashup universe as well. Maybe that's something we start in January. I don't know. I'm slow moving it on. This value for value. Donald Schwartz says he's watching from Nova Scotia. And if you were
Right on.
paying attention, we didn't do Nova Scotia election coverage this morning. It's my time to do a correction or an apology. I don't know. I had a lot going on Monday, and a few unforeseen events came clashing in, and we had to pause election coverage, which really sucks because we want to make sure we're hammering away on all the election coverages. So apologize to any of the Nova Scotians that were waiting for a little mashup election coverage of Nova Scotia.
It went exactly how you think it was going to go.
No surprises.
The conservatives could literally form a splinter cell to be the official opposition. So that's how one-sided it went on that.
All right.
All right. Now,
if you wait, before we invite our guest on, if you like what we're doing, make sure right now, if you're watching on Twitter, retweet this sucker. Okay. I'm talking to you folks. Retweet it. If you're on YouTube, make sure you like it. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure if you're on Facebook, you're sharing this sucker, because we got to get out past all the things that don't want us to get out. And we rely heavily on you lovely folks to do just that. Okay, now, Twos, what were you going to say?
I was going to say we got a special guest today.
Yeah, she's okay. She's okay. All right.
She's phenomenal. She's wonderful. For those of you who tuned into our Sask election live coverage, she was one of the highlights of the evening.
Well, let's bring on Lise. Lise, how's it going?
Hello, Sean Newman podcast viewers. Hi, Toos. Hi, Sean.
Hi.
Welcome from Regina, Saskatchewan, where agribition is happening right now. Our rural component is descended upon the city, and you've never seen so many trucks and cows and tractors as you do this week in Regina. So It's been a great week. Happy Friday, everybody.
Are the city people complaining about it at all?
They do complain. Yeah, they do complain about all of the checks being in the city. I'm like, those guys are spending all of their Christmas money in your city, and you will stop complaining about them right now.
Yeah,
yes,
you guys could
also
just
nice.
You
they're
guys could
also
just
nice.
quit your agri-bitching.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. No, it's always an awesome week. It's always an awesome week to have the farmers descend upon our fair city and
we
to take over the woke madness.
We appreciate you descending on our little mashup here and hopping aboard for a few minutes. And I gotta, before we get on to the first article, I do have to say a shout out to all our American listeners out there. Happy Thanksgiving. Shout out to all you fine folks who are enjoying way too much food, way too much football, way too much. It's of all the American holidays, other than maybe July 4th, they shut down things. Like it's pretty cool to be down there for
like arteries, for example.
Yes. Okay. Let's do
how stupid it is to have a giant turkey holiday less than a month before Christmas. I mean, I get the fact that it's a big deal.
I'm not going to complain about turkey, buddy.
Move it over a little bit.
I feel like it's a lot of holidaying all in one compressed time period.
Once again, I'm not going to complain about too much holiday, too much compressed. Are
the Newmans doing anything for American Thanksgiving?
No, we did not.
Okay, I don't think we're doing anything for American Thanksgiving either.
We're having back-to-back dueling piano shows, I guess. So
yeah, I guess there's that.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe we'll
Twos. First headline. Come on.
Okay,
let's go.
All right.
Snappity here. Let's go. 135. Jesus. Let's get on the roll. Sask NDP show their teeth. Woo. Scary. On October 17th, Mo announced that his party would establish a policy restricting students' use of change rooms to their sex assigned at birth as its first order of business if reelected. And MLA Jared Clark said, the premier put a target on the backs of my two 12-year-old kids. He held a press conference to stoke fear and outrage about two kids at an elementary school while my children's picture was circulating on social media, identifying them while unimaginable hate was raging down on my family. What do you think was going to go through a 12-year-old's mind when he heard the premier of the province targeting them? The premier owes my children an apology. He owes all transgender kids in this province, especially transgender people in this province, especially kids, an apology for how he has made them feel so unsafe over the last year.
Well, okay, here. I'm just going to start off real quick. I'm going to share this screen and just point out that, this guy had a lot to say. And, there is quite a lot to chew on here. He's got I mean I I just I he's fairly famous right now. I mean, you guys might recognize this guy from being on our Canadian Nickel.
You're going after his teeth?
I just
That's where you're going?
How do you take this guy seriously, Sean? Dude brushes his teeth with a paint roller.
My God.
Welcome to the show, Lise. Welcome to
This
the
is
show.
the level of pettiness that I'm here for. This is the level of pettiness that I'm here for.
Oh.
But yes, everyone, you're looking at Saskatchewan NDP MLA Jared Clark, who has found himself in the middle of a shitstorm of his own making, I might add.
Yes.
After the story of two transgender students displacing 160 girl students in the town of Balgonie, Saskatchewan, and it was revealed that it was his two biological sons. Jared Clark yesterday the day before yesterday in the Saskatchewan legislature did a extended tour of self-victimization when he called on the premier of the province to apologize to his kids. Number one, Scott Moe did not identify or out his kids. He identified and outed his kids. It was him that put his kid's picture in front of an NDP banner in a church and plastered it all over social media. And it was common knowledge in the town of Balgonie, which is a tiny little bedroom community about 30 minutes outside of Regina, that these were an NDP MLA's kids. So, I mean, the person that outed those children and has put his own children in the line of fire is Jared Clark himself, with the help of his delusional wife. And what we're not talking about is the way that this is impacting, number one, the community, but number two, the girls of Balgonie. And so this is who I'm here today to talk about, is those girls and those families and how their rights are being trampled because of the extraordinarily entitled and privileged children of an NDP MLA.
Well, it's really interesting. Lisa and I were talking about this before Sean got here, but there was Regina Leader Post covered this, CTV did, CBC as well, and they all had basically the same article, and not a single person reached out to any of the girls who were forced to go into a change room with these two dudes. Nobody talked about the parents of these kids.
Not a single one. Not a single one. They copy pasted all of their stories from each other. It looks like, quoting word for word Jared Clark's, his extended tour of victimization. The person that keeps talking about this is Jared Clark, and I gotta say this. He claims that his family experienced what was the words? It was like there was
a lot of words. It was like a 14-minute speech.
Unprecedented hate or something like that, he said. And really, I never saw a single comment about his kids negatively talking about his kids or to his kids. As a matter of fact, there was a great deal of empathy shown by the Saskatchewan public to his children. What was criticized was Jared Clark's delusional parenting decisions.
Yes, there was quite a lot of that.
Yes, there absolutely was. And a lot of people calling for social services to investigate him and his wife. But the crazy thing is, in Saskatchewan, the genesis of gender madness was actually enabled by social services. So back in 2015, there was a foster mother. She is a vapid left gender activist named Fran Forsberg. You can Google her. She's on the front page of every newspaper when there's a rally, when there's a protest, she is the rainbow mom. She was a foster mother of 160 kids, 160 kids.
Like,
several through her home.
Logistically, how does that even work?
Yeah. Exactly. What kind of love are those kids getting? No, this is just a landing pad. So she has 2 kids of her own. She's adopted 8 more, and several of her kids turned out to be trans. And so in 2015, she came into the possession of a child, I think a First Nations child, if I'm not mistaken, who was 3 years old, who was maybe neglected, maybe abused, in any case traumatized by being taken out of their birth home, and this child decided at 3 years old that all of his problems would be solved if he would identify as a girl. Fran Forsberg then challenged the provincial government to remove gender as a marker on, or excuse me, sex as a marker on birth certificates, because she went to, register this child for kindergarten at the age of 5 or 6. And they said, well, what sex is this child? And she said, that's not fair. And she challenged the government. And this is why sex was removed as a marker on Saskatchewan birth certificates. So for everybody that is saying social services should investigate this family, this all started with social services. And at the time, another really interesting aside was Carla Beck, the leader of Saskatchewan NDP, was a social worker at that time. So this is all nice full circle for Carla Beck and the NDP to bring this up. But again, I will defer back to the poor girls of Balgonie, Saskatchewan, who are watching their rights, their privacy, and their safety being galloped over for the entitled and privileged two children of a Saskatchewan NDP MLA.
Just so they can be showpieces, basically.
That's right. Used as political props. Whereas Jared Clark would accuse Scott Moe of using his children as a wedge just before the election. Well, I think it's real clear that Jared Clark has been using his kids as props in his political career for the last several years. So,
Regina, Balgonie.
Yes.
It seems like the epicenter of craziness for Saskatchewan. Lise Merle, you're always at the heart of it. Or at the middle of the storm of it, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's happening in Regina, and especially in education right now, is just truly hideous. What's being floated to parents is, if you don't like it, then homeschool your kids. And as a matter of fact, the parents of Balgonie, who have been trying to work with their school and their school division and all the administrators for many, many months on this issue, have been told that if they don't like it, their girls are free to change at home when they withdraw from public education and are homeschooled. So this is where we're at. Girls in Saskatchewan, if they don't want to change in front of boys while they are going through puberty, are encouraged to quit school, go home, and be alone and isolated. It's the Tralaban. It's the Tralaban in Saskatchewan, and nobody seems to be interested in defending these parents, to not even hearing them. I mean, if I was the leader of the government and one of these stories kicked up, if I became aware of it, I would have my staff burning a new road to these communities, to hear the parents out, to hear their concerns, to know, just to feign interest in the experience of their daughters, so we could better understand. And nobody has reached out to them. Not one person. Not one.
Okay.
It's egregious.
Dumb question, but if you've got all these parents being told, look, if you don't like it, your kids don't have to go to this school. What's stopping them from, I get the fact that there's a cost, but what's stopping them from, commissioning a school bus and taking them to one of the next towns over, and just having, I don't know, 4 or 5 school buses taking all the kids? And sure, yeah, you guys, you two trans kids can have this whole damn school, and we're going to send all of our kids to Quappel for school.
Because the school division won't approve those changes. You must get the permission of the school division to move a kid's school, and they will not give it. The response of the school, they can't try. They can't. You're within a geographical location in Saskatchewan, and that's the school you go to. In Alberta, they have parental choice in education, where you get to determine where you want your kids to go, whether it be a sports academy or whether it be a classical academy or religious education, whatever. It's up to the parents to decide. But in Saskatchewan, it does not work that way.
Not entirely. I know when this, maybe it's outdated, but I know when the Radisson school closed down, all the parents had wanted to, or the school board had wanted to send all the kids to Borden, and all the parents were, it's basically like a Dog River Woolerton thing, where they were like, screw Borden, we're going to get a bunch of buses, and they started shipping all the kids to Maymont instead.
Yeah. Well, it could be that could have been a critical mass situation, but right now this is just such a small. I mean, there's nothing that's closed off to these parents. I don't think there's anything that they're not looking at this
Mhm.
point. And they are. I mean, they've just been put through the ringer. These parents, they've just been put through the ringer. And when you're up against a wall, like a wall of opposition, this is from school administrators. This is from the school division. This is from the ministry itself. When your government doesn't show up for you, when people in your own community are taking the position of Jared Clark's boys and saying, if your girls have a problem with this, then they're transphobic, homophobic, big fascists. I mean, they're up against a wall of opposition. And it's, I mean, my heart just really goes out to them. If anything, this just reinforces the fact that parents have no recourse when it comes to this issue. And you know what? It's not controversial to not want your kids to be influenced into these kinds of decisions. This is not controversial. And yet, just right here in Regina, in our very school, there is a middle-aged man with fake tits and receding hairline and with his visible male anatomy showing through his short skirts and midriff bearing sweater vests. And when parents say, right, I don't want my kids to be influenced by this at all, we're literally told you have no choice. This is not up to you. Eat it or homeschool. That's it. That's their line. It's crazy. It's insane.
So is the Sass Party, do you think, going to address this in any meaningful way?
Not fast enough. Not fast enough. 1 week before the election, Scott Moat said that this was going to be, their number one move if they were if they had the honor to be reelected again. This was going to be their number one thing. And 1 week after the election, 1 week after their election, and 1 week before the municipal elections, Scott Moat walked that back and said, we're just going to leave it up to the school boards. So I don't know if you heard the story about election interference in the Regina Public School Board trustee election. There absolutely was, and that's going to unravel on them in spectacular fashion. But when they're stealing the elections and the provincial government says, right, we're just going to leave it up to the trustees, and then the trustees, along with the school divisions, steal the elections, well, then that doesn't fix any problem either, does it?
No, I haven't heard anything about that.
Oh, that is a juicy story. So Regina Public School Division, P.S., this is highly unethical, and B, highly illegal, decided that they wanted to choose their own board. So this is an institution that relies on a public vote to choose the trustees that are going to drive the direction of the school division. Well,
Okay.
they went on a tour of Regina Public Schools and told all of their teachers who they were going to vote for. They can't do that. That's called undue influence in Saskatchewan. It is illegal across the board in every kind of election. Imagine if your boss put you in a corner and said, this is who you're going to vote for, or else.
Oh, you mean like unions, for example? As a hypothetical example?
Yeah, you can't do that. Like it's technically unlawful. So we're going to see this happen. But what Scott Moe did was throw his flamin' hot potato that, P.S., the Sask Party is responsible for creating. Back in 2015, we enshrined sexual orientation and gender identity into Saskatchewan human rights laws. Thank you, Earl! We enshrined these things into Saskatchewan human rights laws, and these groups have used those laws as a battering ram to trample over any opposition to this, especially as it pertains to the encroachment of women's and girls' rights. And we are just done with it. I am fed up to here with this. And so the action that the province is taking, they're just kicking it down the field at the school boards. What we're at risk of ending up with is 28 different policies, 28 different sets of policies, depending on the school trustees, when what we need is somebody with big enough balls to just go, right, this, you know what, we're just not going to do this anymore. We're just not going to do this anymore. So who that man is, okay, I will hammer stars into his crown when he emerges. But what I'm here to do is give him the permission to do just that. Hurry up, boys.
Lise Merle, you never disappoint. Thanks for hopping on.
I'm just gobsmacked here.
And
that was
giving
so
us,
well done.
And giving us an update from the epicenter of wokeism in Saskatchewan, Regina.
Well, it's great to be here, boys. Like, let me know when you want me back on, and we'll talk anything but sports. I just won't.
Like,
I just don't do this. But the duding, like, I just don't do the duding. But these big juicy stories, yeah, I'm game.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sounds
so
good,
much.
Lise. Thanks for hopping on.
Bye, kids.
Well, we should probably
Why
turn
not-
it off now because
Yeah,
we're never gonna live up to Lise
How
anymore.
are we going to top this? Like, just I can't decide if she should have my job, your job, or both of our jobs.
It's possible. It's possible. I'm not gonna argue with you.
All
Shall we begin the
Yeah.
actual? I don't know.
let's keep going with the rest of this.
I guess
at a
I guess,
much slower and less
we'll just
interesting
carry
pace.
on. Yes, Coots 6.5. I didn't realize you put an article in there too. So what article did you put in for the Coots boys?
Oh, well, this one's kind of fun and interesting. So for those of you who remember the July 2014 death of 18-year-old Colton Crowshoe in Calgary, where he was strangled to death and then his body was thrown in a storm pond in Calgary. The guy who killed him wasn't even arrested till 2022, and he was just sentenced.
How many years?
Current time served plus a year, which comes out to 3.5 years, if I'm not mistaken. 4.5 years.
And if you're new to this, the reason why we do this is because Christopher Carbert, Anthony Olenek sentenced to 6.5 years.
Yeah,
for mischief.
Yeah. So the next time you're really mad about the government, rather than doing a protest at a border crossing, probably the more expedient thing for you to do is just strangle somebody and then throw their corpse in a
pond,
slough.
And you'll get 4 years.
It just makes mathematical sense. So just keep that in mind the next time you're really mad about something the government does. The more prudent thing for you to do is a killing spree.
We're not advocating for it. We're just pointing out the mathematician.
Yeah, it's just math. We're not. But I mean, I get the fact that math is racist, but this is just what we're saying.
Winter is electoral interference. So I'll bring it up the full thing, but it's Naheed Nenshi's letter from the Alberta NDP to the chief electoral officer here in Alberta. By-elections tend to have low voter turnout. The premier's cynical decision for a winter election is so close to Christmas and Hanukkah risks an even lower than typical turnout. It is incumbent on Elections Alberta to ensure the turnout is not low because voters did not know when and where to vote. I mean, there's more in it, but there's a chunk of it.
Yes. I would just like to point out that today is November 19th, which means that in 1 year less 3 days, we'll be having the next federal election.
You mean November 29th?
November 26th is the next federal election, is it not?
Today is November 29th, not 19th.
Oh, did I say 19th?
Correct. Anyways, carry on.
Sorry.
November 29th. Okay. Yes.
All right. So anyway, the point is that if we're worried because winter happens in Canada, and I mean, God, like, can you believe just how surprised everybody was when it happened again this year, just like last year and the year before it? And we're going to have a federal election in the middle of winter for anybody who's had to drive in the past week. I would just like to point out that us paying a carbon tax to slow global warming is probably election interference.
Carbon taxes. No, we ate the children. Time is a concept which eludes our grasp. Those who remain huddled together in cold caves trying to remember what fire is made of. The postal strike continues undaunted. The union representing, man, I hope this postal strike, kind of like the other Randy, goes on for like another year, just so I can read Two's headlines on this. The union representing Canada Post workers say the Crown Corporation has been laying off striking employees as the labor action by more than 55,000 workers approaches the 2-week mark. In a notice to members posted Monday, the Canadian Union of Postal Workers called the layoffs a scare tactic, and it said it's looking into the situation. Meanwhile, Canada Post spokeswoman Lisa Liu confirmed the layoffs, saying they are temporary. She said the organization has informed some employees the collective agreements are no longer in effect and their conditions of employment have now changed as per the Canada Labor Code. Quoted, "Our business has been significantly impacted leading up to and throughout this labor disruption. We have taken steps to adjust our operations," Liu said.
I mean, this is great. So somebody said, somebody at Canada Post said basically, "Oh, you guys don't want to come to work anymore? Okay, well, you're fired." Which is roughly what you should be doing regardless. I think it's just absolutely beautiful. And it's funny because you've got the same thing. It would have been, I wanted to talk about it this week, but it was the same thing we covered last week, where you've got CBC talking about how devastating it is for people, and then the National Post being like, nobody notices and nobody gives a shit. And then lots of other people talking about how they've switched like their last few remaining bills over to e-bills and stuff like that. And the funny thing is that for an organization that's struggling so hard to maintain just a tenuous grasp on relevancy, this strike is literally them nailing their own coffin shut. And we're here for the whole thing, folks.
Vibe session over the vibe session. Do you want to show the video? I don't
have the video queued up, but what I can.
Well, here I'll read it off. If you want to show it, you can. The federal government.
Actually, here I got it. I got it. So this is actually pretty important.
All right, who's going to show the video?
Jean-Yves spoke about the disconnect between the positive news that the numbers are showing about the Canadian economy and what people are feeling. He talked about how Canadians are feeling. And that's a really important economic point. A lot of economists have been talking about the vibe session.
Let me just pause here real quick. Now, for those of you curious about all of the economists that are talking about the vibe session, this is the Google Trends of the word vibe session in Canada. 0.0000000.
Dude, we do this show weekly. Until she said vibe session, I'd never heard it. And you would think the two of us yahoos would pick up on it because it's literally what we do, talking about the
And on the left-hand side here, this is January 1st, 2004. This is like the entire history of the Google machine is captured on this graph. And this line that runs right along 0 means that nobody ever in the history of Google had ever searched for vibe session until this month. So when she talks about how economists have been talking about this,
nobody was talking about it. Yes.
She's full of shit. Vibe session sounds like something you saw in Much Music in like 1998.
Honestly, yeah, that's actually kind of where I thought she stole it from, was exactly what you're talking about. That's what I thought when I heard it. She's saying Canadians just aren't feeling good, and that is having real economic consequences. The country's doing well. It's all of you yahoos not feeling that good that's really having an issue on the economy.
It's
you people.
You people who think that your groceries are expensive. They're not expensive. You're just stupid. Which is a great message to have when you're looking to try and get reelected in a year. I think they should just keep telling us that we're stupid for the next year. Yeah, I mean, you know, they kind of, the trains kind of stopped on the whole racism thing. We don't really care if they call us bigots because they do it every damn day. And the few people who actually still get offended by the stupid things the liberals say, I think that having them being called stupid should be fun. Let's see how that goes. And then Glenn pipes in and he says, the strike has delayed my vodka shipment from Last Mountain Distillery. I won't forgive this. As a big fan of Last Mountain Distillery, I feel your pain.
Fancy socks fills our stockings. Well, if you hadn't heard, okay. The federal government is hoping a temporary break on GST will address a vibe session as gripped Canadians.
Can you say that again? Because nobody heard it.
The federal government is hoping a temporary break on GST will address a vibe session and has gripped Canadians, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced last week that starting December 14th, the goods and services tax will be taken off a slew of items for 2 months to help with the affordability crunch. He's also going to send $250 checks in the spring to Canadians who are working in 2023 and earn up to $150,000. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and his MPs voted against this and said it isn't a tax cut, but rather an irresponsible, inflationist, temporary 2-month tax trick. And he said now would be the worst possible time to blow $6 billion trying to save Justin Trudeau's political skin. He said to reporters on Thursday. It also be noted the Bloc voted against this bill, but the NDP and Green voted with it.
Yes, the Greens said it's bad policy, but we're voting for it anyway. Which, why? Like, are you just so goddamn drunk all the time, Elizabeth May, that you look at something and say, this is a bad idea?
Yes.
Yes, I vote for it.
Yes.
What the hell is wrong with you? What the hell is wrong with any of these people? You know, the interesting thing is, people are actually getting into the weeds a little bit about the GST exemption and how big of a pain in the ass it is for companies. And for those of you who are longtime fans of twos, you may remember me having the exact same things to say about the Conservative platform in the 2021 election, where I said, like, this is just going to cause a whole bunch of stupid red tape. And the Conservative Party should be the party of reducing red tape. And it kind of goes against everything. Like I said, I think I said something like, this is the kind of stupid shit you would expect from the NDP, which we said a lot when Aaron O'Toole was in charge, to be fair. And so anyway, this is the same thing all over again, except now it's actually going to happen. And now people are paying attention and they're saying, well, yeah, it's going to save a couple dollars here and there for a few consumers, but even just navigating our POS systems and doing the updates and the regulatory compliance on it is going to cost us more money than they're saving. So this is actually a net drain on the economy that's handing out a few shillings to a select few people at the expense of business owners. And that's just classic Canada politics right there. Like, this is exactly what I would expect from these fucks. I don't know why I called them fucks, but sure.
If you don't use it, you lose it. Melanie Jolly's department, Global Affairs Canada, ordered $523,000 worth of furniture in a one-day spending spree this past March 31st in order to use up their unspent budget on the last day of the fiscal year.
Now, for those of you who are just, thinking about that, like, just think about this real quick. The last day of their fiscal year is the last day that they have to spend all of their budget. And so rather than saying, well, we all pay taxes, and if there's $500,000 in the budget that hasn't been spent, we actually, as stewards of this, have done a good job, and we should just leave it. They said, well, fuck. Our budget's going to get cut next year because we don't need to actually spend this much goddamn money. So we're going to spend $500,000 in one day on fucking furniture to justify how much money we leech from the taxpayers all over fucking Canada. And then they said, oh, we just, it's part of our prudent furniture maintenance program that we do this. Bullshit. You did it on the very last day of the fiscal year. This stuff happens every year in just about every department. And it can't be a coincidence. Your prudent furniture management requires you to spend half of...
Come on. They spend it on the last day. They knew if they didn't spend it, they wouldn't get it back the next year on the budget, right? They had to show it. I mean, we don't need to get into the weeds on this. It's pretty self-explanatory.
And I don't have... Why would they even lie to us, though, Sean?
That's they're idiots. What do you mean? Why would they lie to us? They're lying to us on every single article we read for 135 weeks. It's been if one thing you can trend on the Liberal government is they're going to lie to us about everything. And then when they get caught, they'll be like, no, it wasn't. You Randy? Nah, it was the other Randy.
How many other Randys are there?
A lot. There's a lot. My word is my oath. Governance in Yukon's second largest municipality has been in a standstill since its newly elected mayor and council refused to pledge allegiance to King Charles during their swearing-in ceremony. Stephen Johnson, the mayor-elect of Dawson City, said he and the 4 other member councils refused to take Canada's official oath to the monarch on November 5th because of the Crown's history with Indigenous populations. He said they stand in solidarity with the 4th councillor, Darwin Lynn, who expressed hesitancy on the morning of the investiture ceremony. Man, what a word. Johnson said to Lynn, as a member of the, and once again, Trondek Hwachin First Nation, on whose traditional land Dawson is located, he expressed he was uncomfortable with pledging allegiance to the Crown due to its history with Indigenous people.
Yeah, so I don't really care what your reasoning is. If you don't feel like you're going to pledge allegiance to some random inbred fuck on the other side of the ocean that serves absolutely no practical purpose aside from giving us an ugly picture to put on our goddamn worthless money, who cares? Like, how does that affect their ability to execute their job?
It doesn't.
Exactly. Like, pledge allegiance to fucking Satan if you want.
No.
Just quit wasting our goddamn money.
No, that's a terrible thing to say on here. No, you can't pledge. No, Twos, I disagree with you.
Okay, but you know what I'm saying?
I disagree with you wholeheartedly.
I'm just saying it doesn't really matter.
That was a terrible example. That's a terrible example.
Okay, all right. Pick somebody slightly worse then. Pledge allegiance to Justin Trudeau.
Once again, that's a terrible example, too. I'm going to move this on. I agree with you. Pledging allegiance to King Charles doesn't make you do your job any better or worse. Trump's terrific tariffs. Oh, my goodness. Here we go. Trump's terrific tariffs trump Trudeau's trepidation to terminate transient transmigrant troubles. There. Ta-da.
Wow.
All right. As everyone is aware, here's Donald Trump's tweet. As everyone is aware, thousands of people are pouring through Mexico and Canada, bringing crime and drugs at levels never seen before. Right now, a caravan coming from Mexico, composed of thousands of people, seems to be unstoppable in its quest to come through our currently open border. On January 20th, as one of my many first executive orders, I will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States and its ridiculous open borders. This tariff will remain in effect until such time as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country. Both Mexico and Canada have the absolute right and power to easily solve this long simmering problem. We hereby demand that they use this power, and until such time that they do, it is for them to pay a very big price. That's what he said.
Yes. Now, it's interesting. He's saying that you guys, as countries, part of your job is to keep track of the edges of it. You know, the borders. You need to make sure that bad stuff doesn't come in or go out. And you haven't really been doing that for a long time. And as such, the U.S. has faced financial issues because now they've got to deal with higher crime, illegal immigration, the enforcement of all this stuff. And we're kind of tired of it. So if you guys want to be dicks and just shirk your basic fucking job as a country, like what defines a country? I would say where it is on the map is kind of a big starter. And as far as where it is on a map, that's kind of the part you need to keep track of. And if they're not even doing that, then saying, hey, look, if you guys aren't going to be a serious country, we're going to make it really difficult for you. You're our neighbors and you're being shitty neighbors. And everybody is losing their, I want to point this out. That's perfect. I'm glad you brought this up. So read off this tweet, please.
This is Trevor Tombe. He is the, and I'm going to pull it up here, the professor of econ at University of Calgary. He says, in work with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, I estimated a 10% tariff on Canada-U.S. trade back in the time, updating this to a 25% tariff. He said, and I find that the Canadian economy would take a 2.6% real GDP hit annually, or $2,000 per person.
Now, Here's the real interesting part is you've got all these economists that are saying, well, what's a 20% tariff going to cost us? And to the best of my knowledge, I didn't see a single economist break down how much money we would save by just stopping bad people from making bad drugs and maybe keeping people who aren't supposed to be in the country out of the country. Like, how much would that cost the economy? I bet you the answer would be somewhere in the negatives, as in it would save us some money. All these fucking crackheads all up and down the street with their fentanyl folds, not contributing to the GDP anymore because somebody made a bunch of bad drugs that they're now hooked on. Okay, well, what if we just stopped the people making those bad drugs just to ensure that more people didn't end up like that? And maybe a few of them would get cleaned up.
And a lot of people talking about it's just filibustering by Trump. Here's what Danielle Smith said. She said, we need to address those issues. She was on Power Play with Vasi Kapelos. And she said, we can't downplay them. We can't play the yeah, but game. And we can't pretend that the economic interests are going to override those very legitimate interests. She's hopeful Alberta can make the argument to the Americans that oil and gas should be exempt from the tariffs in order to bring down energy prices. But she also said she takes the president at his word. And I think you should probably take Donald Trump at his word at this point. No, Twos?
Yeah, yes, I mean, what's he got to prove, right? He's in his second term. He doesn't have to worry about being reelected. He doesn't have to worry about being popular or fair. He's just going to sit down and say, this is how it fucking is. And there's probably going to be a lot of things like that with a lot of countries in the next 4 years where he says, I don't really give a fuck. You guys can stop being dicks or you're going to pay for it. And is it such a big deal to ask our fucking federal government to act like a few fucking grown-ups every once in a while? Nice try, Twos, but he nailed it.
I did, didn't I, Earl? He got me right off the hop. But I once I realized what was going on,
yeah, that was some good alliteration. I was pretty proud of myself.
Smith caps production cap. Are we in goofy news? What are you talking about? Did you add one in on me? You added one in on me.
No, production cap. The Chris Selly article from the National Post. Ottawa all but invited Alberta to flip the bird to federal laws.
No, I did not. Are you talking about the minister's meeting, first minister meeting? I tell you what, Twos, I read the headline, enlighten us and enlighten me, because obviously I have no idea what you're talking about this week, and I'm ready to be entertained.
Okay. Well, this is interesting because you've got a national newspaper having a fair and balanced discussion on the different parts of Canada and how they all come together and how you give fancy carve-outs and special treatments to one area of Canada, let's say, hypothetically speaking, fucking Quebec. And then you say, okay, well, you know what? Because the prevailing argument is that the Sovereignty Act isn't going to stand up in federal court, right? But then you say, well, here's all of this precedent that's been set by fucking Quebec where they've just said, we're going to do what they want. And the federal government says, oh, okay, all right, we're sorry to have bothered you. And so now you've got something that's going to absolutely fucking hamstring Alberta on its own, let alone, for those of you who didn't listen yet to the Silver Gold Bow Valley Credit Union that you just had up, where
Nick and Brett.
Yeah, but where you guys were talking, I think it was specifically Brett was talking about how the two new bills work together to basically just make sure that nobody can get
funding.
Nobody can get funding capital from a bank, from a federal bank in Canada for any oil sands production. And so, you know, to say, hey, look, this is what they're doing and this is how it all fits together. And here's exactly why they are doing what they're doing. And here's the precedent for it, because you already let fucking Quebec do it. And I thought it was great to actually see an honest conversation about how we feel out here by a federal newspaper. And yeah, it's interesting. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I'm glad Danielle Smith's doing it because you basically just said the time of negotiation's over. So Now we get to goofy news.
Goofy news. All right, buckle up, folks. Ontario family pulling plug on light show and leaving town after targeted new bylaw, but the mayor says he's no Grinch. The Williams clan of Kingsville, Canada, most southern town, is also pulling up stakes and selling their family home. They said it's because of a new bylaw that's too broad and too restricted of their growing Williams Light Show, a 20-minute computer-coordinated light music performance that ran 3 to 4 times nightly over the course of 6 weeks on their residential street. Such displays now require a permit, are limited to 30 days, and only certain hours on Thursday through Sunday is what the city did to them. And so they're out and they're disappearing from that
Yeah,
city
like
because
they're
of the
just
bylaw.
like, fuck you, we're moving. And the city specifically said that they passed this new bylaw because of these guys and their crazy awesome light show that they have. Like, it's basically Christmas Vacation on steroids. And the issue wasn't that the light show was too much. It was that parking became difficult. There was too much traffic and also too much garbage, which I found to be really interesting because you wouldn't find that in Western Canada. Like, if you were going to go see somebody's house as like a tourist stop because of how awesome the lights were, you would not be leaving garbage there. But this thing has raised what, like $45,000 or $450,000 for
45. It
45,000.
said they added a charitable component back in 2017, I think, following the death of was it his grandmother from cancer that led to more than $45,000 raised for research. So yeah, it had a charitable component as well.
Yeah. So these guys have raised almost $50,000 for charities by having an awesome light show that's good for the community. And there was 2 or 3 neighbors that were complaining about it, and they managed to get a bylaw passed to the point where they were like, you know what? Fuck you. We're not even going to live in this damn city anymore. And you guys can all eat a bag of well-lit Christmas dicks.
CTV News. Doctors say it is fine to pee in the shower. What is CTV News doing? Whatever, it's fine to pee in the shower, folks. There's no worries about that.
Where did they, whatever possessed them to write this article?
They were watching old reruns of Seinfeld is probably what they were doing. Stolen car found spotted on a raft in Nigeria. I got to pull the video up of this. You don't need the sound. You just need to see it being.
There's this
I'm
car
sorry
with Quebec plates.
I'm sorry to the
pulled
people who are not
across the
watching
river
this.
in Africa. Well, in
That's
Nigeria.
great.
Yeah. And so that car with the plate still on it from fucking Quebec. So, I mean, on the one hand, I'm glad that it got stolen from fucking Quebec. On the other hand, Jesus Christ, maybe we could, these are the ramifications of our easy bail, no real punishment, lack of justice system in Canada, is that we are an international mockery on Twitter because shit like this happens.
It's just ridiculous. Ontario town fined 15 grand after voting not to recognize Pride Month and fly the Pride flag. A small rural township in the southwest corner of northwestern Ontario, its mayor has been fined $15,000 for discrimination following a 2020 vote that decided not to recognize June as Pride Month and to reject flying the Pride flag. It's in the small town of Emo, and I was wondering where the heck that was because I lived in Dryden, which is northwest, about as northwest as you get in Ontario. And we used to play Fort Francis, side hockey note, and this is like a 20-minute drive from Fort Francis. I was like, oh, interesting. This small little obscure town doesn't want to fly the Pride flag and recognize Pride Month, and they're getting fined 10 grand, and the mayor, because of his deciding vote, got fined 5 grand.
Now, this whole thing sucks and it's stupid. The one not even redeeming thing, but the one thing I think is noteworthy that we should see more of is that the fine was payable to I don't know, whatever random gay organization wanted it done. So it wasn't like he got fined 5 grand and it was payable to our national debt. It was payable to the people that took umbrage with his decision. Now, having said that, this is really fucking gay.
All right. Carrying on. Calgary goes on a flow ride. The city of Calgary is currently commissioning its upgraded water treatment equipment with plans to reintroduce fluoride into the water supply on track for early 2025. Calgary's work comes as some cities, including Montreal, recently voted to remove fluoride from their water system. Quoted, the city is completing necessary infrastructure upgrades to Calgary's 2 water treatment plants with commissioning of equipment underway. The cost to reintroduce fluoride into Calgary's water system includes $28 million for treatment plant upgrades and an annual maintenance and operating cost up to $1 million. The article went on the site, children's teeth, and a whole bunch of different things that they've seen an increase in problems.
Yes. Now, the other interesting thing that increases with fluoride, we just talked about this study that came out, I don't know, maybe a month ago, is that apparently it makes you dumber. Now, call me cynical, but if you're a shitty politician doing a bad job and you're implementing a policy that's going to lower the median IQ of your voter set, that's just a little bit too tidy hand in glove for my taste. Like, everybody's mad at us because we're spending a bunch of money on stupid shit. What if we just made everybody in town less smart? Then maybe we'd get reelected.
I guess I should have said, I just had on Dr. Bob from Calgary talking specifically about this. So interesting, because I'd never really looked into the fluoride thing, but here it is on full, like we've talked about it a month or two ago.
Mhm.
And now here it is coming back into Calgary and everything else. So it's as it leaves Montreal.
All right. Next headline.
Doge of the week. I'm just going to bring up the tax codes by Mario Nawfal. Western tax codes ranked. How does Sweden do it in 100 pages? So in 100 pages, they do it. The UK, 17,000 pages. United States, 6,800. Australia, 5,000. Canada, 3,000. Germany, 1,700. France, 1,500. Spain, 1,000. Italy, 800. Netherlands, 400. Sweden, 100. There you go. That's the tax codes.
The interesting thing, because it's Canada, I'm wondering if he just looked at federal and didn't even take into account provincial, because that's probably leaving a lot on the table as far as this discussion goes. I find it absolutely interesting that some of the biggest lobbyists in the States, and I don't know where Canada fits in on this, but in the States, some of the largest lobbying groups are regarding tax codes. And so you've got accountants who go to the government and say, we need to make these laws more difficult, because they have this vested interest in it. Because if the tax laws were really, really simple, nobody would need accountants. If the tax laws in, say, Canada was like 5 pages of tax laws, it was like, you can write this off, you can't write that off, you need to pay this, done. Any random schlub, no matter how much fluoride water they drank, could be able to do their damn taxes. And then no one would have any need for accountants. So they go to the government and say, we need more work, so make the tax laws more complicated. And then that way we can come in as specialists. Because what are your options? Well, you can try and do it yourself and either A, get it horribly wrong and miss out on a bunch of money, or B, get it horribly wrong the other way and go to fucking jail. Like, this is...
You know why I was almost late? You know why I was almost late?
Because of tax stuff?
Yes. I was literally on the phone trying to get through, and I'm just like, they want my money, but they won't take my money. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Like, why can't it be just so simple? I owe X. I'm going to go pay X. Anyways, doesn't matter. That's the reason why I almost missed the start of the mashup, is I was trying to pay a bill I owe to the government, and it is just like, man, nothing the CRA touches works. And today was almost case in point, as Sean almost missed his first ever mashup of being late. Like, I've missed
because
mashups
of the fucking government.
because of the government.
Classic government.
Classic government. Washington Redskins resurrection? There should be a question mark behind that one, I think. The Senate Energy and
I hope
Natural
it's not a question mark. I hope it's actually happening.
I don't know. The Senate, we'll see. The Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee last week approved advancing legislation funding the revitalization of the decrepit RFK Stadium site. Montana Senator Steve Daines has said he would block legislation until the NFL and Commanders honor the old logo in some way. Of course, we're talking obviously everybody knows the saga of the Redskins removing their logo and then coming up with a new name, the Commanders and yada yada. Anyways, he wrote, "I applaud the Commanders and the NFL for their commitment to never censor the logo again and for working with the Wetzel family to restore it to a place of prominence and honor to benefit Indian country." Commanders owner, though, Josh Harris, has said that the team will not return to its old name. That's part of the article as well. And I'm like, they're talking about not censoring it. They're talking about the ability to buy merchandise with the logo on it and all that good stuff. And you assume if they do that, sales for that gear is going to go through the roof. And they're going to be like, at some point, the dollars and cents are going to make sense to turn it back into the Washington Redskins. The current owner says it's not going to happen.
Well, I mean, just the concept of saying that a team name is demeaning. It's not like you don't pick anything aside from Ottawa Senators. You don't pick anything super lame. Right? I mean, you've got the Calgary Flames, the Rough Riders, the Stampeders, the BC Lions, the Vancouver Grizzlies, the Toronto Raptors. It's not the Toronto Diplodocus. Right? It's not
the only other one like the Senators is the New York Mets, the Metropolitans, right?
Yeah, okay. And
you're like, why would you name yourself? I mean, I understand why, but
Ottawa, because they've got the Senators there, and so they call themselves the Ottawa Senators. It's just like how in the CFL, because you always pick names.
Ottawa, terrible name. Red Blacks too. What a terrible name.
It makes perfect sense for Ottawa because you've got nothing but red ink and black face.
I hope personally, I hope that the names come back, right? We were talking about the Eskimos in Edmonton, right?
Mm-hmm.
Going to the Elks, you're like, man, I'm sorry, CFL fans. I'm not a giant CFL guy, but you lose me when that stuff starts happening. And then, you start to hear the talks and the rumblings and everything going on. You're like, you start to do smart things, you're going to bring people back. And Washington can't, if they go back to the Redskins, especially with all the things that happened to, the kid and everything, there's so much going on there that's just absolutely insane. Here's something that isn't insane, okay? Co-vindication. Trump announced in a statement on Tuesday that he had picked Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, a professor at Stanford University and School of Medicine, to run the nation's leading medical research agency. He said Bhattacharya would work with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., his pick to the Department of Health and Human Services, to direct the nation's medical research and to make important discoveries that will improve health and save lives. Together, Jay and RFK Jr., this is Trump, quoting Trump, together, Jay and RFK Jr. will restore the NIH to a gold standard of medical research as they examine the underlying causes of and solutions to America's biggest health challenges, including our crisis of chronic illness and disease. This is a giant win. RFK Jr., everyone's like, what can he really do? And you're kind of like, maybe it's this and this. Now, Bhattacharya, I got a ton of time. I think a lot of us have a ton of time.
How many times has he been on your show?
He actually has never been on the show. Ever.
Why did I think he's been on your show multiple times?
He's been on a ton of shows. I want to make that very clear. I actually have his number in my phone because I was trying to get him on the show, which is really, regardless. Everybody knows this guy's name. Everyone is excited about the fact that he's been appointed. I think this is
I don't think
news.
Anthony Fauci is excited.
No, Anthony Fauci is not. But I mean, this is huge news. This is really, really big news. That I think bodes well for the next 4 years, and we'll see where it ends up. But him getting a prominent place is exciting, I think.
Absolutely. And then Willis Carnegie says red ink, blackface, twos from the top ropes again. Appreciate that.
I hate it when you guys give him all the credit in the world because it gets him off the topic at hand,
Well, it's just that you were talking. I didn't want to interrupt. Should I just interrupt
Broilers.
you next time? Yeah. And then
Yes.
Claire says the Edmonton Broilers. Yeah. If if the last provincial election had gone to the
We're
NDP
talking
in Alberta.
co-vindication, and you're bringing them back onto the sports names.
Oh, yeah, great. Yeah, the next time the NDP get in Alberta, they're going to be the Edmonton solar panels.
Congrats, Jay Bhattacharya. I think
Yes,
that's awesome. I think for
absolutely.
all the amount of time that has been railroading all these doctors and absolutely calling them quacks and tinfoil hat and everything and every under the sun, Jay Bhattacharya is a very well-respected man. And I just hope that it bears fruit, right? Like I hope he
Well-
goes in and has a shot at doing some things, because that's exciting.
The tinfoil hat thing's really interesting because if you look at the last several years, it was probably even more effective than ivermectin in fighting off COVID.
DEI downward spiral. Walmart is the latest major U.S. company to announce a rollback of diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) policies, with the retail giant telling Newsweek that we've been on a journey and no, we aren't perfect. The company confirmed its plan to stop using the terms Latinx and DEI in official communications, won't continue the Racial Equity Center it founded in 2020, and will ban any sexualized or transgender products marketed towards children. They joined Ford, Lowe's, John Deere. They joined Ford, Lowe's, John Deere, Tractor Supply, Molson Coors, Harley Davidson, Stanley Black & Decker, Toyota, and Bud Light on removing DEI.
Bud Light.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting how you fuck around and find out?
That's good news. That almost could have been the good news at the end.
Well, I mean, we've had a few good news, but
the other Randy update. The federal government has suspended contracting with the medical supplies you don't say firm co-founded by non-Indigenous Liberal MP Randy Boissonnault, following
how they threw that in.
Following the revelations that its bid on government contracts will claim to be wholly Indigenous owned. Quoted, the suspension will last for a period of 90 days. It may be extended as necessary until a final decision regarding the supplier status under the ineligibility and suspension policy is rendered, the department said.
Now, I get the fact that this is just classic government, but the big surprising thing for me here is that this company, which has no physical space anymore because it got burned down by arsonists, that is currently facing $8 million worth of court charges, that's being sued by a half dozen different corporations, still had an active contract with the Canadian government. Sean's typing something. I don't know what he's typing. I don't know what he's doing. Do I buzz myself at this point? Should I
Remember
buzz
the
myself?
movie? It was Pain and Game, right? It was Pain and Game where The Rock and Mark Wahlberg were the two bodybuilding guys that end up was it robbing something and then killing somebody? I forget the whole plot line, but it was like, this couldn't happen. And then the movie kept saying, no, this really happened. You know what I'm talking about, Tiz?
I mean, I know of the movie. I never saw it.
Okay, you've never seen that? Okay, so in the movie, it just keeps getting dumber, and the plot line just keeps getting dumber and dumber, and it pops up on the screen. This really happened, and then it goes on to where
throughout the movie.
Yes, and then they're grilling hand.
Cool.
They I forget, is it body parts? Or they cut up hands and they're grilling it on a barbecue, and I'm like, this is stupid. There's no way this happened. And as soon as I thought it popped up on the screen. This really happened, and it does that multiple times. I feel like there's going to be a Randy Boissonnault movie or documentary made where they just keep doing that. This really happened. They really burned down the thing. And then he said there was no, that is a different Randy. And then he said there was no cocaine. Meanwhile, there is a cocaine Randy. And then he really said he never said he was an Indigenous. Well, in fact, he was strong Cree man.
You're really onto something here on this, Sean. Absolutely. Just imagine if they did the same kind of thing that happened with Tiger King. If you just took the Tiger King concept and you made a story about, instead of Tiger King, you had Strong Eagle Man.
An SMP and Twos production. Strong Eagle Man. True story.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
got something.
Every week, we're just this is actually happening. Oh, I think it's, yeah. There's $1 million idea right there. Somebody take it and run
Métis
with it.
self-identification blows up by-election. Madison Fleischer, running in the riding of Cloverdale-Langley City, says she self-identifies as Métis and previously claimed to be Métis on some of her social media profiles. But the Wasia Métis Society, a charter community of the Métis Nation BC located in her riding, said Fleischer was unable to provide any evidence to back up her claims when approached by the organization. Yeah, she was quoted as saying, "I self-identify as a Métis based on what I know about my great-grandmother's heritage, and I'm currently collecting the necessary documentation to go through the application process to receive Métis Nation, British Columbia citizenship. I've always been vocal about not yet holding it, and removed Métis from my social media bios to ensure there was no confusion in my identification." Her statement said, beyond her social media profile, she also identifies as a non-status Métis with Ukrainian ancestry. I'm like,
Let's just pause for a sec, because you know what? I mean, if she's claiming Indigenous status, she probably has, a few things here and there that just make her, where you look at her and you're like, okay, it could happen, right? Like Buffy St. Marie, where you look at her at first glance, you're like, okay, I could see how she could try and pull this off. And I'm sure that if we were to look at a picture of Madison Fleischer, we would say, oh, I can see why this gets confused all the time. Let's bring up a picture of her, shall we? For those of you just listening along, you're looking at blue eyes, incredibly light skin, blonde hair, and a forehead that you could write a fucking book on. And yet, even with that giant goddamn head, she seems dumb enough to think that this is going to work for her after it didn't work for Randy.
or maybe she was just taking notes from Randy. It worked for him for a while. Till it didn't.
Yeah, I guess. All she's got to do is get voted in the by-election, and then after that, she can be like, haha, got you fuckers. But yeah, if you were to just randomly look at that woman, you'd say, oh, well, she looks very Ukrainian, which doesn't typically get confused with First Nations.
Update. Revenue Canada is still retarded. I can speak to that this morning firsthand. The Canada Revenue Agency is being hit again with revelations it failed to detect a scam, one so obvious that, according to insiders, a simple Google or corporate registry search would have prevented it. According to sources, the agency learned earlier this year that it wrongly paid out tens of millions to scammers who used phony businesses to claim Ontario tax credits to renovate or build commercial facilities. The CRA processed the tax credits on behalf of the Ontario government, but sources say the federal agency was responsible for verifying the claims and in 4 years never checked any of them. According to sources, CRA officials were concerned about the easiness to create a fictitious corporation and stated no review is performed to validate the legitimacy of the new corporations whenever a new corporation is registered. Quoted, no address requested for building in question, one internal note stated, according to sources, meaning no one checked to see if the renovations happened at a specific address or even if the company itself was real.
Part of me fucking loves this. You see, it never even occurred to me. And I guess this is probably why I'd make a horrible criminal, although I do want to do a heist one day. But it never even occurred to me to think, like, rather than trying to send out a whole bunch of random emails, hoping you could trick somebody into sending a bunch of money to Nigeria, like, well, the government's full of stupid people. What if we just tried tricking them into sending us money? It's so genius. It's simple. It's just perfect. You're like every time you talk to Revenue Canada, you're like, is there a single goddamn adult in that entire organization? Is there anybody who is functionally literate? Can I talk to somebody who didn't think getting vaccinated 7 times was going to be a good idea? And then you think, okay, well, you know what? If I was going to scam somebody, these would be the perfect people to do it to. They have access to unlimited money, and they're all functionally retarded. All right. Becky says, I'm pretty white and have my card. Not sure what your point is. The point, I guess, where I'm trying to go with this is that if you look super duper white and you're just going to say that you're First Nations,
you're probably going to get called on it.
Well, that's the thing. Someone's going to ask you at some point, and then you should probably have a better backstory than just da, 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 da. And so just the fact that the fact that she looks like this, let's say she is. I imagine that this isn't the first person who's ever asked her about it. And then
she
she'll have been
very
able to say,
well could be. And there's lots of people that could be. But if you don't have your card, you can't say you are.
if you don't have your ducks,
Especially when you're rolling in
if you
politics.
can't, well, that's the thing. You're going to go into politics.
You're gonna go put it all over your
Someone's
social media.
going to
and-
ask you.
I mean, come on.
And if you don't have a decent, even a half-assed answer, that's pretty suspect. So I hope that makes sense.
Happy news. I don't know what our happy news is. You didn't put anything in. Did you put anything in?
I didn't put anything in. I realized about halfway through the episode that I was like, oh, where was that happy news? So here you go. California man who went missing for 25 years found after sister sees his picture in the news. And so it doesn't get into a whole lot of detail. It's from the CBC. So you finish reading the article and you're like, I'm still not even sure what the hell I'm looking at here.
Our
But
happy news.
But yeah, well, this guy went.
The headline's great. It's a great
The headline's
happy news
great.
headline.
The article's
Great.
indecipherable. Fucking.
We have no
gibberish.
idea what it was talking about, but it was great.
So this guy went missing in 1999, and his family couldn't find him. And then a hospital in California put a picture of this guy in a hospital and said, "Hey, we've got this guy. He's nonverbal. Nobody knows who he is." And so then she happened to see it, and she's like, "Oh, hey, that's my brother that's been missing for like 30 years." And so they went and looked, and sure enough, it was him. Although, I mean, was it him? Because he could have just said it was. I mean, he's nonverbal, right? So he can't really dispute it. He just gets carted off with his new family, whether it's real or not. But
Happy news. Folks.
I don't know, like
Happy news.
how they figured he went missing, whether this nonverbal thing was a new development or whatever. But yeah, it's a happy headline anyway. So, community notes.
Community notes, December 8th, Wainwright, Vermilion, Lloydminster, UCP, AGM, and Wainwright, 4 p.m. I've been getting emails about it. If you're a UCP member in my area, you should pay attention to that date. Maybe show up, maybe volunteer, maybe, I don't know. You decide on your level of what you want, but that is coming up right away. Here's a quick minute video on what's coming up May 10th in Calgary, Alberta.
Flipping the script today, I'm going all the way. It's about time. It's a good day coming. It's a good day coming. Good day, sweet like honey. It's a good day coming. It's a good day coming. It's a good day coming. Good day, sweet like honey. It's a good day coming. It's a good day coming.
There you go. I mean, I still say that clip doesn't have nearly enough of me in it, but other than that, it's
Cornerstone Forum, May 10th in Calgary, Alberta. Just search me out on any social media. If you're listening to this on the podcast, go down the show notes. Early bird tickets on until December 31st. I'll be there. Twos will be there. Tom Luongo, Alex Craner, Chuck Prodnick, Kalen Ford, Matt Arrett, Chase Barber from Edison Motors just announced. Tom Bodrovic's Palisade Gold Radio, Chris Sims from the Taxpayers Federation. I mean, and more coming. So it's going to be an interesting Saturday in Calgary.
Chase, if you're listening right now, you should drive one of your trucks.
He should.
You should bring one of your trucks to the show. Yeah,
There you go. And
I'm
Becky
looking-
McCaffrey said, "LOL, agree. I'm done with pretendians. Thanks for clarifying. It's not just about the whiteness. Love your show."
Thanks, Becky. And Bonnie says, "Awesome trailer." Other community notes: Erskine Curling Club, February 5th to 9th, 2025. The Alberta Boston Pizza Cup. It's the only pizza you'll find in a cup.
Folks, Mashup 135 in the books.
In
To
the
all the
books.
people coming to the Christmas shows here in Lloydminster, the Dueling Pianos, look forward to seeing you. Twos, it's been a great week.
Thanks, Lise. Really appreciate you
Yeah,
coming.
thanks, Lise, for hopping on and firing this thing up to start it off.
You make me want to be a million times better at this.
Until we chat again, 1:36 next week. Thanks for joining us this morning, folks, and we'll catch up to you next Friday, 10 a.m. right here on, well, wherever you're tuning in from. We're all over the place. YouTube, X, Facebook, Rumble.
And Earl says he may make the trip from Toronto for the Cornerstone Forum.
From
How cool would
Ontario.
that be?
It would
Oh,
be
sorry.
Earl.
Yeah. Pardon me.
Come on out, Earl.
Yeah.
You know what you don't even know what you're missing if you don't come. Come on out, folks.
We'd love to
Okay,
have
folks. Out of here. Till next week.
you. All right, bye.